Welcome to episode 22. Wow, of 22-man game with Jared and Dame. I'm Jared. That's Damon. It is Tuesday, January 6th, 2026, 8:01 p.m. Coming at you on a Tuesday, like always. And this is the first Tuesday after the regular season, gearing up for Wildcard Weekend. Damon, how are you doing today?
Happy 2026. Happy New Year. Like, comment, subscribe. We're reaching a goal this year of 10 whole subscribers. We know you can do it. Um, I'm feeling great. YouTube, Spotify, perhaps you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts because I might try to figure that out after this, maybe. We'll see. I'm doing fine. It's been 3 weeks since we last recorded. A lot of football has occurred. So many things have happened. And we will talk about all of it in the span of 6 hours and 22 minutes. Jared,
Sick.
how are you?
I'm doing well. I like the thought instead of a 10K sub challenge, it's a 10K sub challenge.
There you go.
No, I'm doing well. I made some changes to my background that are both tenuously adhered and may fall at any moment and are barely visible. But I had all these old 90s football cards that I glue sticked to some construction paper that are now in the back.
This is the
I
project
was
you were telling me about. Yes.
This is the project, yeah. And I'm hoping they don't tumble comedically, but there's a real risk. Um, I'd love to dwell on I think there are some actually really fun cards up here, but not a lot of time to dwell on that because there is so much in the way of news, especially a lot of firings today and yesterday and even Sunday evening. So I think we should just jump right in and get everyone caught up. We're going to spend a little more time on the teams with hirings, firings, and maybe some other squads who haven't made major changes. We'll have to discuss at a later date, but there is a lot to catch up on.
Yes. Dom and I did a pod on Two Man Game, Dom of Two Man fame, um, not too long ago. And I called it a 30 for 30 because we talked about every team because it had been a couple weeks. This will basically be a 32 for 32. So let's
Yes,
do it.
and longtime listeners, I know we normally do a wheel game segment where we reflect on a game that Damon and I were assigned to watch. Our last two games were Lions Vikings and Lions Steelers. For those wheel games, the wheels came off. That's all you really need to know.
Mm.
We'll get to the Lions in a bit, but we're going to go in draft order from top to the playoffs and then talk about the matchups we can't wait to see this weekend, which means that number one, the winners of the losers, the worst of the worst,
Yeah.
Las Vegas Raiders, baby, 3-14. Just so you know, when we're recapping a team, if we say they lost by less than 14. And if we say some ridiculous word, it means they lost by 14 or more points. With that said, the Raiders in week 16 lost to the Texans, were destroyed by the Giants in week 17, the Darren Waller Bowl, but then beat the Chiefs in week 18. Damon, what were some personnel moves the Raiders made as their season came to a close?
Yeah, as they were kind of winding down, of course, season coming to an end, Edge, Max Crosby, probably their best player, is placed on IR to prepare for a knee surgery he's going to have. They want to get him healthy before next season. Also, tight end Brock Bowers and safety Jeremy Chin were shut down and placed on season-ending IR near the end there, because they both had kind of nagging injuries they were dealing with throughout the season. Despite the Week 18 win, they do finish with the number one overall pick. I don't want to do this for every team because I think that would take way too long. And I think we can do that in the offseason, of course, as we approach the draft. But I think the Raiders will kind of set the precedent here because you can make an argument that the two teams we're going to talk about next desperately need a quarterback. You could also say the Raiders need a quarterback based on Geno's year, but he is probably the most like surefire situation of the three teams that we're going to talk about at the top three spots here. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this number one spot that they earned by losing their way to the end here.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I expect that they'll invest in a quarterback just because I think Gino doesn't represent a future for them and also gives them the opportunity to potentially keep whoever they draft on the bench. And I also think having access to this pick is going to be a draw for head coaches. There's been
Famously, one of
discussion
my
of
bad moves of the offseason, Gino to the Raiders.
that has aged really well. I think we need to go back and like review how well or how poorly we kind of predicted the season now that we're at the end. I'm sure we have a lot to mourn and then a few nice picks mixed in there. So
For sure.
uh, yeah, I think there hasn't been a ton of rumblings. There haven't been a ton of rumblings in terms of who might replace Carroll, but
I
I
didn't mention
think
that, by the way. I didn't say that. So,
their head coach Pete Carroll of Seahawks fame, also worked with Geno for many years, was fired. Uh,
one
you
year.
bring in a you bring in a coach to raise the floor, and instead they go to the basement. And unsurprising to see Carroll leave as a result. I imagine they're going to target the kind of coach that can maybe grow alongside a young quarterback that they I imagine the only thing with waiting on that quarterback is you just might not get that chance. If you're suddenly picking 10th next year, no matter what capital you get trading down to 2 or 3, I don't know if you're going to be able to get back up. So, uh right now probably the clubhouse favorite for Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana, who's been absolutely owning
And
opponents.
we will talk about the CFB in another episode because we just don't have time. And it's not wrapped up yet, but it has been very fun to watch. I did want to mention fourth year in a row they fired their head coach at the end of the season.
Yeah, not a lot of consistent leadership for the Raiders. I think they had a really, I think John Gruden had potential for the Raiders, obviously,
And then he was a
with
bad
his,
person.
and then he was unethical. He was an
Mm.
unethical guy, and so now, yes, we've got to the point where they've really had a revolving door, and so curious to see if they can find a coach and commit to a coach that might be more of a long term hire. We'll get to some of the other coaches who were fired as we move down this list, but there are definitely some interesting names out there. And also maybe a name that other people would expect to be fired that wasn't. Why don't you tell us about their team, David?
That team is the New York Football Jets, who ended up with the number two pick at 3 and 14. They were absolutely obliterated by the Saints, Patriots, and Bills in week 16, 17, and 18, respectively. Just destroyed down the stretch. Justin Fields, before any of those games, was placed on season-ending IR. Tyrod Taylor was injured for some of it. There was a little Brady Cook action, I think, in there. Just throwing guys out there. Garrett Wilson was injured a long time ago. He never came back, and they just said, "Yeah, he's done for the season." I don't think they ever put him on IR, and maybe at the very end, but he was just kind of sitting there in the ether. Um, and they fired their defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes. That happened not at the end of the season. I think it was a couple weeks ago, but it has been so long since we recorded, and their defense had been such a disaster. But they did also sell their best defensive players earlier in the season, so I don't really know how they expected their defense to be good or the rest of the team to be good. But you are alluding to head coach Aaron Glenn getting another shot after obviously an abysmal season for a pretty abysmal team. Hopefully, whatever they do with this number two pick can help them going forward.
Quiz question for you, Damon. It's not on the sheet, but I'm going to give it to you raw here.
Hmm.
How many interceptions did the New York Jets defense record in 2025?
Okay, I feel like I would have seen. This is a tough question. Who'd they play? The Bills. Josh Allen is a little turnover prone. I know going into Week 18, they still had zero. Um, and I'm trying to figure out, did they get one in Week 18? I don't remember them getting one, but I feel like if they didn't, I would have heard a lot, maybe more buzz about them not getting one. But maybe other news in Week 18 just kind of took over, so people didn't care that much. Um. I will go with one.
They got zero. They
It
got
was zero.
zero for
Wow.
the
First team in
entire.
history.
Yes, yep. They're
Hmm.
they're the first one. They started tracking the stat in 1933, according to CBS Sports. And they had yes, Jets officially go entire season without recording an interception in NFL first since 1933, according to Yahoo Sports. So
Insane when
I was
your
rooting for that to
head
happen
coach
because it's
is a
crazy.
quarterback.
Yeah,
Uh,
when a ball hawking defensive back is your head coach, and you don't get a single interception, it's a little sad.
yeah.
Um, Moving on to the third overall team, this was the Cardinals at 3-14, and
Started
man,
off 2
unless
and
I'm
0, by the way.
mistaken, I was gonna say, didn't they win? Yeah, two or three of their first. So yeah, the wheels absolutely came off. They lost to the Falcons in week 16 before being pulverized by the
Mm.
Bengals and Rams in weeks 17 and 18, respectively. And as I predicted, or at the very least figured should happen, head coach Jonathan Gannon has been shown the door. Um, there were some banged up players near the end of the season. Defensive tackle Walter Nolan, their first round pick, who also missed the start of the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. also went on IR, having foot injuries throughout the season. The big question looming is what happens with Kyler Murray, who's guaranteed 36.8 million in 2026 and 19.5 million more than that if he remains on the roster in mid-March. So complicated situation for the Cardinals and their quarterback room. A lot of talk about whether they're going to move on from Kyler, and maybe this is a good time to reset now that you've also moved on from your coach.
Yeah, and with mostly backup quarterback this season, Jacoby Brissett, who did throw like literally 50 passes every game. It was insane. Tight end Trey McBride broke two records. Both the team records for reception was previously DeAndre Hopkins back in 2020 with 115, and tight end receptions in a season, which was Zach Ertz back in 2018. I wrote 2020 on here. That's wrong. With the Eagles with 116 catches. He had 126 catches on the year, so he broke both those records by 10 plus. And he did it in week 17, but then he, of course, added on some additional catches in week 18 as well. I just wanted to mention that because I know a lot of people are like, but you have an extra week. Well, he did it without the extra week, and then he just happened to add on to it.
I do. If I have a wish for football, and honestly all sports, I think we need to start shifting to per game stats as the baseline for records because all of the week 17, oh, there's another week hoo ha kind of goes away if you just average it, right?
Mm,
Then, oh, Myles Garrett averaged more sacks over the course of the year than, player X,
mm.
and that's his record. But yeah, super impressive stuff. Crazy to think about the fact that DeAndre Hopkins had held the reception record because honestly, he should never have been a Cardinal. I think he should have been a career long Texan. And
Well,
the trade,
the trade was legendarily horrible, and I knew it immediately. Because I was like, that guy, that 30-year-old running back, that's a crazy trade to make. And it was.
yeah, it's not on a Luca level, really not even close, but it is still one of those swaps that you immediately go, uh-oh.
Yeah. It
Bad
was like him
news
and like a
there.
second round pick, and it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Also weird because Larry Fitzgerald is Larry Fitzgerald and doesn't have the record.
That actually is a great point. I guess, maybe he was always surrounded by someone else and, we're a volume passing league. I don't know. Either way, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Cardinals go. Obviously, Gannon was more of a defensive minded head coach. Do they try to replace him with someone who can take advantage of the defensive talent he's put around himself, or do they move in an entirely different direction? Worth seeing there. But with some coordinator openings, maybe Jonathan Gannon is in line to pick one of those up. Let's move on. Number four, Damon. Who is number four in our standings?
Number four, your own Tennessee Titans, because you're from Tennessee. People don't know that if they don't listen all the time. Also 3-14. They absolutely annihilated the Chiefs in week 16. Then they lost to the Saints in week 17, and then they were annihilated by the Jaguars in week 18. That's how their season wrapped up. Uh, One of our three ethical ballers that we'll shout out today, maybe more than three, um, Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle, was week seventeen's NFLPA MVP for leading three charitable events over the course of 7 days. He donated 5K to sponsor a local high school's girls flag football team. Very cool. He took 20 kids out on a holiday shopping spree of a different school, and then he outfitted four high school seniors with suits because they had kind of these milestone moments, graduation, things like that. Not graduation because it's the middle of the year, but probably things that are worth celebrating with a suit, and he made sure that they got the correct fit for them. So all in the span of a week, he did all these different great things, which was nice to see. Um, you want to comment on either of those things?
I like Jeffrey Simmons, I think.
All right.
I know it's a stupid take, but he's just one of those. There's some players that just kind of, they're not your team's players, but you still kind of respect them and love the way they play. And I love a good nose tackle. And Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best DTs in the league. So props to him for reaching out in all these different ways to the community. I think that's very cool. Um, the Titans also hold on to the edge of your seat, football fans. The biggest news of the month, probably. They've restructured their front office to give GM Mike Morganzi the keys on the head coach search and control of the roster, with President Chad Brinker moving into sort of a salary cap management and then research and analytics role. Um, the fact that Borgonzi comes from the Chiefs tree points to one of their two coordinators. I don't necessarily like Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, as a hire for the Titans in their vacant head coaching spot. I kind of feel like this could be a fun spot for Kevin Stefanski if they give Kevin Stefanski a little bit more of like, hey, we're just going to kind of leave you alone. We messed it up with Vrabel. We won't mess it up with you kind of thing. But when you give the GM this kind of power, I suspect they're going to put someone loyal to their cause in the seat below them. So we'll see.
Yeah. As I guess they had these kind of undefined rules or similar rules, or they were both responsible for the same thing. So they're like, okay, you do this and I'll do this. Um, it's interesting. How about this? How about the number five team, the 4-13 New York Giants, who going into week 17 had the number one pick, by the way, with a grand total of 2 wins. And then they went ahead after losing to the Vikings. They, I'll use this my favorite one. They gobsmacked. That's my favorite one.
Nice.
Um, Both the Raiders, who of course ended up with the number one overall pick, and the Cowboys in week 17 and 18, respectively. So they drop from pick one all the way to pick five in a matter of 2 weeks, which, of course, in sports, you don't want to lose on purpose. But they like really gave it to those teams with their all in the last couple of weeks. And it's just kind of an interesting decision. Of course, they fired Brian Daboll mid-season. Interim head coach Mike Kafka, not expected to be the long-term solution, but they are retaining their general manager. Do you know how to say this guy's name?
Joe Shane.
It's Shane? No
I'm
idea. It was
almost
Shane.
certain. Yeah.
I feel like I've never heard it said, it's like one of those things I read and I'm like, I don't know how to say that. Um,
It's actually Joe Shonen Anime. That's
there you
yeah.
go. That makes more sense. Yeah, I put this on here because I think, there's a lot of speculation with how their team is going that maybe they wanted to move on, especially when teams, we've talked about this before, when they fire head coaches or general managers, sometimes they'll fire the other one too, just to kind of get a full restart, but they did not do that here. And I feel like that makes sense given how well their young players have looked over the past several years. Yes, the team hasn't been performing, but Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Scattaboo, Tyrone Tracy, even as a late draft pick last year, and he was their running back. A lot of their young guys have looked good. Not Abdul Carter this rookie year, but I think everyone would have basically taken him, so it's not on them. Um, and when you have young talent performing, I think general manager is going to get some credit for that, even if it was, the scouts or whatever. So it kind of makes sense to me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm generally suspicious of, general managers being folks behind the scenes. I don't want to say that they can't meaningfully contribute to the success. Like they obviously do meaningfully contribute to the success of a team, but I'm trying to think of examples where the team put all their eggs in the general manager basket and that paid off for them. I think that list is short, maybe the Eagles with Howie Roseman, but um I don't know. I I think that Heed the Call too talks a lot about like misaligning your head coach GM timelines, and it seems like a lot of teams are going to go ahead and try that this offseason.
Hmm.
Interested to see if something good can come of that, but I personally am a fan of fire both, hire both. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about the number six team.
Yes, this is the Cleveland Browns here. So they lost to the Bills, but they did manage to get past both the Steelers and Bengals, stealing some divisional wins. They're always fun. Uh Quinshon Judkins, their star rookie running back, some questionable off the field stuff. Either way, he fractured his fibula and dislocated his ankle. That puts him on season ending injured reserve. That's a tough blow for a team that hopes they can maybe eventually replace Nick Chubb's role in the offense with an emergent talent like Judkins. But in positive news, Edge Myles Garrett got a sack against the Bengals in Week 18 to set the sack record at 23 on the season. Slowed down majorly late in the season, but was able to close it out near the end of the final game. Cutting it close, got her done. That said, not enough to retain head coach Kevin Stefanski. Of the top six teams in the draft, the only to retain their head coach was the Jets with Aaron Glenn. And Stefanski had coached the most games for them since you left a black box here, so I'm supposed to guess. I,
Yes. I don't
I
there's no chance you have the name, but do you know how many games or win?
um I I have a guess for the coach's name.
Okay.
Was Eric Mangini ever coach of the Browns or something?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, but that's not the name here.
It's not the name. Could it be Bill Belichick?
It is not.
I would guess they managed to coach 42 games. Whoever preceded him.
It was not so yeah, it wasn't. I'll tell you this, it was in 1963 to 1970.
Hey, that's
Um,
crazy. Fun fact.
which was 112 games,
Oh, okay.
was the total, and their name is Blanton Collier. Collier.
Oh, it was Blanton Collier.
There's no
Oh,
way you're gonna get that. But Stefanski coached 101 games, which is the most since that mark.
he's probably cursing himself that he couldn't outlast old BC, but it happens.
This is one of those coaching moves where I'm like, I guess, but also you're the Browns and have had horrible, horrible teams for such a long time. Like this feels like it was not the problem, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I,
You also purposefully had three starting quarterbacks this season.
are we really putting the blood on the hands of two-time coach of the year Kevin Stefanski? I think, yeah, this is silly. I think that the owner meddled, got in the way of Stefanski building the kind of team he wanted to build, would be my guess with the whole Deshaun Watson situation.
My
And I
God.
think Stefanski's going to explode wherever he goes. I think he's going to be a great hire. Um, and I would pair him with a young quarterback with bona fide talent and just see where that goes. Obviously, a lot of the teams hiring right now don't necessarily have that established quarterback, but there is one shocking firing or parting of the ways that we'll get to later where maybe he's a fit. I'm gonna roll into the Commanders unless you have anything more to add on the Browns.
Um, Here's what I'll add on the Browns. Brown and orange is not a good combo of colors, and you should fix that.
Yeah, valid. I've got a Browns player up here. Oh, I've got one of my boards here is either like coaches I remember hearing the name of or like executives back when they were players or like the parents of current players. And I've got an Ozzie Newsome Browns card up there, and then also
Mm,
apparently Packers linebacker Clay Matthews' father also played for the Browns. So the more you know. Um.
thank you.
Anyway, a massive tangent. Listen, I worked for longer than I'd care to admit on a glue stick project, and I'm going to find excuses to talk about
That's
it.
fair.
Here's a team that didn't fire their head coach, but did just about everything. But the Commanders, Washington Commanders, going 5-12 this season after reaching the NFC Championship game last year. They lost to the Eagles and Cowboys in week 16 and 17, but got their revenge against the Tanner McKee-led Eagles in Week 18 to push the Eagles to the number 3 seed. After the season, defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. was shown the door, and offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury parted ways with the team. So they suddenly have a vacancy at both coordinator positions heading into a crucial third year of Jaden Daniels' career where hopefully he can keep his health. Um, yeah, this has been a radical change of fortunes for the Commanders, not just having a down year with injuries, but suddenly not even necessarily having access to their coordinators. It's just it's an uphill climb for them. I think I'm going to be really interested to see where they expect themselves to be next year based on the results of this season.
Yeah, I don't know, the like narratives behind either of these coordinators leaving. I just, again, kind of like Stefanski, it's just like I don't like if they were pushed out the door. What did you really want them to do with all of the catastrophic injuries this team had this year? With a pretty hard schedule too.
Yeah, I have a Commanders fan in my orbit, and I think they were relatively, they expected Joe Witt Jr. to leave, and I think we saw that he lost play calling duties earlier in the
Hmm.
season. So
It's
not a
usually a
huge
sign.
shock there. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to another team with a similar
Yep.
situation. But um yeah, losing Cliff is interesting, and I do wonder whether he may have an opportunity to land a head coaching gig, and if not, will almost certainly land as OC somewhere else.
Or maybe he'll go back to college. Who knows?
Oh, could be. Could be. I mean, a little late in the college hiring cycle, but you never know. Um, Also, if a college coach gets plucked away to the NFL, you never know.
Right. How about this red hot team to end the season?
Yeah, the
The new
new
or
or
the New Orleans
Orange
Saints,
Saints.
picking number 8 in the draft. They finish with 6-11 record. Um, After absolutely looking for a word, carving up. I don't know. That's 2 words. The Jets, which is a surprise to no one, beating the Titans and losing the Falcons in Week 18 in a game that weirdly mattered. We will get to that later because it mattered in the division race. But running backs Alvin Kamara and Devin Neal were shut down for the last few weeks of the season, so they were really running like Audric Estime and Evan Hull out there, which was kind of interesting.
Fun
And
fact: you
then
actually made those people up.
I didn't. They're real life football players, I swear.
Audric
Um,
Estime is the most fantasy sleeper name I've ever heard.
it's a cool name. Used to be a Bronco. I don't know why I know who that is and like know where he played, but I do.
Wow, he got
Um,
21 carries in week 18. That is
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, and then wide receiver Chris Olave was out for week 18 after doctors discovered a blood clot in his lung, which is obviously incredibly scary. And like not luckily, obviously, this is not luckily. You don't want a blood clot, but it's going into the offseason, so he has plenty of time to rest and recover before worrying about football activity. He also had a back injury scare back in like week 16, and of course, he's had multiple concussions in his short NFL career. So he's had a lot of things to deal with, but when he's out there, he's very talented. So, point being, they went on this kind of spree here at the end, under Tyler Shuck, we should say, as their quarterback, without a lot of their, important players. So, I think that holds good, for their future and ending the season this way, I think is gives some hope for the fans, I'm sure.
Yeah, unlike some other coaches where their late season wins were too little, too late, I think this was a gratifying way for the Saints to end their season with real promise being highly doubted. I'm eager to see what they're able to do in year two of the Kellen Moore show. Um, Speaking of Kellen Moore,
Mm.
uh, yeah, just as we all expected, the number 9 overall pick. I'd like to formally declare there's no Kellen Moore related transition here. The number 9 overall pick, as we could have guessed, was the Kansas City Chiefs. Right? What a change of
Oh,
fortunes for one of the NFL's blue blood franchises going 6-11. If you had told me before the season the Saints and Chiefs ended the season with the same record, I would have looked at you mouth agape. They were
I would have slapped you silly.
they were vivisected by the Titans and lost
Oh
to the Broncos and
God.
Raiders to slide at the end of their season here. Of course, not aided by the fact that quarterback Gardner Minshew had a season-ending knee injury just 1 week after Patrick Mahomes, leaving the team's fortunes in the hands of, is it Chris Oladokun? Did I get that right? The third string quarterback for the
Yeah, I want to say a Ludacun. I don't know why I want to say a Ludacun, but that's probably
um
wrong.
yeah, either way, the third
I think
string
they signed
quarterback.
Shane Bugle as well. I don't know if he played, but they did sign him.
Um Shane
And then they waived
Bugle,
him. But
yeah, I couldn't tell you a single thing about Shane Bugle, but I could tell you a lot about the following
it, it's
players who were
it's a
shut down.
Bucle, I believe.
A
Bucle.
bugle, like,
Buechele.
yep, yep, that big. Ooh,
UT
it's got
legend,
the.
by the way.
Oh, is there a chance it's like Bouchel or something like that? Could we be in a Bouchel territory?
Yes, we could. You think I know how to say any of
Comment
these
and in
names?
comment the phonetic spelling of Bouchelli's name here, or Steve
I've
Buscemi's name.
actually, over the course of 22 episodes of this show, and Dom and I did our 100th episode before we um, went to the new year. I don't think any time I've ever said comment something, someone has actually followed through on that. So I hope today is the day that happens.
Yeah, maybe I'll comment on our pitch just to make the dream come true. Um, But talking about some of their players who were injured, wide receivers Rashee Rice and Tyquan Thornton, as well as tackle Jawan Taylor, linebacker Leo Chenal, and corners Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, they were all shut down and put on season-ending IR. The Chiefs truly closed up shop once their playoff chances reduced to zero. And now they may be leaving uh, Missouri altogether starting in 2031. They'll be playing games in Kansas and moving on from Arrowhead Stadium, which has certainly gained a reputation. It's probably one of the 10 most recognizable stadiums in the league just because of the prominence of their dynasty and the fact that Arrowhead isn't called, some silly company name.
Right.
So hopefully they could replace it with a quality facility and yeah, we'll see where it
Moving
goes from there.
states, not in Missouri. I know they're Kansas City, but no, they're not in Kansas. They're in Missouri because for some reason Missouri also has Kansas City. So,
All their fans were just so confused. Now there's clarity. Now there's clarity. It's funny to think when St. Louis had a team, there were two Missouri teams.
yeah,
Not a
isn't that
state you'd
weird?
expect to have two teams.
And now they'll have zero. 5 years from now.
Wow, wow, wow.
From one AFC Super Bowl quarterback team in the last 5 years to another, the Bengals, 6 and 11, the 10 spot in the draft. Oh God, I don't have any more big words. This is too hard. They were stomped. That's one syllable, but it still counts. Stomped the Dolphins
It's
and
a
the
word.
Cardinals in week 6. Yeah, but you said vivisected. It's not nearly as
Yeah,
complicated.
I don't know. Yeah. English major. I
um,
got to I got to flex.
right. Stomped the Dolphins and the Cardinals in week 60 and 17, and then lost to the Browns and gave up the sack record to Myles Garrett in week 18. Another team that I think people were a little surprised. They are retaining head coach Zach Taylor as well as the director of player personnel Duke Tobin. Which after a season like this, yes, granted the long-term Joe Burrow injury, but I think people are like, oh boy, maybe we need to do something else here, as this is obviously a very off season. And then leading into our next team, which is why I put it here at the end, they were apparently offered 4 first-round picks to move up to um, get off of Joe Burrow in 2020 in the NFL draft from the Dolphins. The Dolphins wanted to move up and select Joe Burrow instead of Tua at number 5 like they did. So they offered them 4 first-round picks, but they declined, obviously. And we're looking at potentially an offseason in which neither of those teams have these quarterbacks anymore, according to some reports. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I'll roll right into the Dolphins to continue this conversation at 7 and 10. I've been chewing on what my word could be for this. Um, I'll say they were decimated by the Bengals, beat the Bucks, and then decimated by the Patriots, and the quarterback they took in the draft instead of Joe Burrow with that trade not going through, Tua Tagovailoa was benched and replaced by Quinn Ewers as UT legend Quinn Ewers, who started in his place down the stretch. I think he probably played well enough to be a backup, not well enough to get fringe starter conversation, but good for him either way. Um, they're also, after his in-season injury, in a position where they may move on from Tyreek Hill as well as Tua Tagovailoa. They would save $23.65 million in cap if they released him before June 1st, or $36 million in 2026. They released him following June 1st. It
I
looks
had
like Mike Mc...
one letter in the wrong place into his last name, and I typed it without looking at anything. That's crazy.
That's impressive. It's as our own president has displayed, it can be a challenging name.
Hmm.
Um, but obviously they fired Chris Greer mid-season. It was your running joke that Mike McDaniel would be fired before, during, or after the game, but instead he is not fired after the season. Expected to be
Uh,
retained as
ah,
GMs are being interviewed around the league with the advisement of who else? Former Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman, who I have multiple football cards of that we don't have time for right now, Damon.
that's me. Yeah, so weird that Troy Aikman would do this for them. I don't know if something will come out about that, but
Wait,
I know
I just figured out why.
why is that?
It's to set up this transition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
Because
next team.
speak.
Go ahead.
No, go, please.
No, no, I don't want to. I
All
lied.
right, on three. On three. This is going to
Okay.
prove to the listener how much lag we have. We're going to
Okay.
say the team name in three,
Uh-huh.
two,
Yep.
one. The
I,
Cowboys.
I was
Not
never gonna do
even.
it. I was never gonna
Oh,
do
I feel alone now. Tell us
it.
about the Cowboys.
The Cowboys. You just didn't want to say it. You just don't want to come up with another word. I think that's what it was.
I'm
For
punishing you for not
destroyed.
participating by
That's fair.
making you come
And
up with
guess
a word.
what? The Cowboys were punished by the Chargers
Ooh.
in week 16, beat the Commanders in week 17, and then were punished again by the Giants in week 18 in a game that ultimately didn't matter. Weirdly enough, they activated corner Trayvon Diggs from IR, and then 1 week later released him, and he was signed to a team that is in the playoffs. That we'll talk about later. They also placed corner Deron Bland on season-ending IR after he was out with a foot injury for a while. And then at the end of the season here, they fired their defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Disaster of a defensive season for this team. Both their starting corners are injured, and one of them is not on their team anymore. Obviously, they traded for Quentin Williams from the Jets at some point this season. They traded away Micah Parsons, obviously, big deal at the start of the season. But just like Pete Carroll for the Raiders and their head coaching vacancy, the fourth year in a row that they will have a new defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. So that sounds tough.
While we're on the Cowboys, did you see the Titans were going to interview former Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett for their head coaching position?
I did see that, yes. Um,
Rough. If that
you
hire
know,
happens, I won't even like my empathy for the Titans will be gone.
he's one of those guys that like, wait, why is that?
I think he's just kind of a silly guy. I don't really
Yeah, I
necessarily
was just saying,
take
it's
him
one of those
seriously
guys
with
that
football mind.
he talks as an analyst, and I'm like, well, I don't really care about whatever you said.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. Um, you know,
Whatever.
but yeah, jumping to Matt Eberflus, I do wonder if kind of like Matt Patricia going to be defensive coordinator of Ohio State after a pretty rough run his tenure in his tenure as head coach of the Bears, and then obviously having a challenging season with the Cowboys. I wonder if he might need to jump down to college for a couple of years and maybe rebuild his reputation as a defensive mind before having a chance to coordinate again in the NFL. Otherwise, he might be you know analyst or special advisor kind of role because I don't see him coordinating in the NFL anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Let me talk about perhaps a team that I disagree with the most of their moves right now. And that is the Atlanta Falcons at 8-9. Pick number 13, but it does not go to them. It goes to the Rams in a trade that I could not tell you. What players were exchanged or when it happened, I had absolutely no clue. Jared?
Oh, you mean the phenomenal swap of selections with the Rams in order to acquire James Pierce Jr.? Uh,
Oh, yeah, that's the one. Um, so pick 13, not theirs after they traded for that second first round pick last year to select James Pierce Jr., which Jared, of course, did not like at the beginning of the season. He had a pretty good rookie season, that being said, but obviously pick 13 is a tough one to give up. They did end the season on a four-game winning streak, including wins over the Cardinals, the aforementioned Rams, a team that was playing for the one seed, so that's like a big win. And then the Saints in week 18, and again, a division deciding game, except not for the Falcons or the Saints. But it mattered on the result of their game, and the Falcons ended up tying the Buccaneers and the Panthers with an 8-9 record, which is crazy, especially because a week before they lost to the Jets by three. They win that game and everything else goes the same, and they're in the playoffs. So that's wild.
yeah.
That
Instead,
that
they'd been
yeah
eliminated for a while, so pretty crazy.
yeah they'd been eliminated, but then they went on a tear anyways to worsen their pick. Not by much. I mean they're not that far down from teams that won like three games. So
And it's also not their pick, so
and it's also there's no incentive to lose. Exactly. Good point. But at the end of the season, they fired head coach Raheem Morris, who at the end of their Week 18 win over the Saints, Bijan Robinson and Drake London were among players that were like, oh, we're sticking with Raheem Morris. Like he's our guy. We like him. And then General Manager Terry Fontenot was, I assume it's Fontenot, not Fontenot. Fontenot looks stupid. It must be Fontenot. Um,
it's fun. No, yeah.
yes. So they let both of them go. So the pairing firing, as we talked about earlier. Um, I don't know anything enough about operating football teams. I know that you didn't like the James Pierce Jr. trade. I didn't really have a take on it. He was fine this rookie season. There's more stuff that a GM does aside from that, obviously. Um, but I think the Raheem Morris part of this matters a lot more for me. I think this team had a lot of games this year in which they showed you a lot of potential. I think about their win over the Bills, for example. I already talked about this one over the Rams. I know they had a couple of losses here and there that were probably shouldn't have been losses, but I just think that this was a weird time to do this because I don't think he's a bad coach. So I didn't love this move for them.
Yeah, I understand that he didn't give results and you know the fact that they've been dealing with the Michael Penix Jr., Kirk Cousins situation is pretty high profile, I would say failure for
Hmm.
both of them. I think that Raheem has now been a head coach twice, which makes it, I feel like it's hard to get a third head coaching job with a different team. But I imagine that kind of the opposite of Eberflus. I think he'll be around for a long time as a coordinator. And I honestly hope that he gets another chance someday. I found him to be pretty likable at points. And I think ultimately the Falcons were sabotaged in part by the fact that they didn't have a reliable QB.
Hmm.
Um, a QB like Matt Ryan, who's been
Mm.
rumored as the potential president of football for the Falcons, a promotion for their current president, Greg Beatles, to CEO, is coming. And so that leaves a vacancy there. They're also interviewing a few names across the league, including Lions, I want to say chief operating officer or like vice president of football operations, Mike Disner. But having Matt Ryan come into the organization would be interesting. I've seen reports that Ryan would like to remain an analyst with CBS as well. So bit of a tricky situation there, but it could definitely be interesting to see him return to the franchise that defined his career. You know, we don't really think too much about his Colts stint, but yeah, interesting phase for the Falcons. And I'm also with you that these are some ambiguous moves. I don't know if these were surefire ways to go.
Yeah. MVP Matt Ryan. 28-3 comeback Matt Ryan, except the bad part of it. The comeback part of it. Not well, the came back on? I don't know. You get it. Um anyways, another 8-9 team, the Ravens. Tell us about the Ravens, Jared, because I'm just too sad to do it.
Yeah, the Ravens, who I proudly predicted to be 16-1 this season, went 8-9. They lost to the Patriots, filleted the Packers, and then lost to the Steelers to
Mm.
stumble out of the chance at a division win and wild card game. It is worth noting that Tyler Loop missed a kick that would have brought them a win in Week 18, last game of the regular season. And that missed kick may fundamentally alter the course of the league because head coach John Harbaugh, who's coached with this team for 18 years, longer than half of both our lives, has left the team. And maybe the largest head coaching change I've seen uh, since Bill Belichick and with not many others to compare it to. Pretty titanic shift, a true mainstay with the Ravens and expected to land with another franchise in this coaching cycle, unsurprisingly. Yeah, this news came today. It was hinted that maybe something like this could happen, but even then, it didn't feel like it could be true till it was. And now we're staring down a really interesting situation where it's hard to imagine improving over Harbaugh at the head coaching position, but I don't know. I like maybe Stefanski here. What do you think? Who could fill his shoes? And should they have let him go?
No, they should have let him go. I mean, he has brought more success to their franchise than a lot of teams want in their franchise for their entire franchise, basically, and he's done it in 18 seasons. So, obviously, as the Super Bowl, yes, there's a couple of playoff failures in which they haven't reached the Super Bowl yet. This season was a disaster, but I think most of it can be attributed to inconsistency on both sides of the ball. Lots of defensive injuries early on, and then we had the Lamar thing for a while where he was in and out of the lineup. So it's, you know, like I know injuries are a part of football, obviously. But if you're a coach, I imagine you go into the season and each week with a game plan of what you are going to do. When you are constantly missing multiple key components of that game plan, it's hard to adjust. That being said, they were amazingly in position to win the division in Week 18 after a season that was absolutely a disaster. I will say to rookie kicker Tyler Loop's credit, it was an incredibly windy game in Pittsburgh. Chris Boswell, this will be forgotten, one of the most accurate kickers in the league. He's missed two extra points in the last 5 years, and one of them was right before Tyler Loop missed the kick. The Steelers should have been up by three, but he missed the extra point because it was so windy. And then Tyler Loop missed a kick that was 10 yards longer because it was also so windy. So I do want to give that context because I don't want people to just be like, oh, the kicker, because I feel like that's the gut reaction.
And I wasn't
Um,
aware of that, so thank you for bringing that to my attention as well. So,
yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing because people aren't going to report the context of it. They're just like, oh my God, they missed a kick. But also, like, you shouldn't have been in this position to play the Steelers for the division anyways. You should have already had it clinched up by now, but alas, that's not what happened. And yeah, you mentioned Stefanski. I think it's interesting because I think he had a couple of those Browns teams that were like better than they should have been, where I feel like him going to like a Raiders or a Titans makes a lot of sense because like that's another young team that you could like lift the floor of. But he's never been on a team as talented as the Ravens, and it's like, oh, if you have a guy that did something with nothing, or with less talent, and he did a lot. If you gave him a team with a lot of talent, what would it look like? Definitely leaves me curious. And I feel like, after John Harbaugh, who, by the way, was reported to receive 7 phone calls to be hired within 45 minutes of being fired, there were only 6 vacancies at the time. So one of those teams have a head coach still at this point, and they are like, yes, we would like to replace him actually with you. Um, I imagine after him, Stefanski is probably like number two on the list in terms of like head coach talent or whatever you would measure that at. And I don't think obviously they want to fall down. They want to be a playoff contender. So that feels like the direction they would go.
yeah, definitely going to be worth watching. Of note, ethical baller of this week also was Derrick Henry, who was the Week 18 NFL PA MVP, We're giving holiday gifts to hundreds of kids in Baltimore, Nashville, as a former Titans player, and Yulee, Florida. So props to you, Derrick Henry. You're not just
Do,
smashing
do you know
defenses,
why he
you're
did
also
Florida?
thawing hearts. Did he grow up there, or
Correct.
I figured it couldn't be like Yulee, Florida isn't even a college town, and I
Yeah.
guess he went to Alabama, so um, yeah, no shot. That's really funny. Uh, let's jump on to also. I just want to note, by the way, a lot of teams ending with the same record in a cluster. I guess that's kind of how that happens. But we had 4, 3, and 14 teams, which I feel like is a little anomalous. And then
It's a lot of
we have like
losing.
a lot of losing, and then we've got 4, 8, and 9 teams here. The third of those, number 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8 and 9, losing to the Panthers and Dolphins in week 16 and 17, but then getting the revenge on the Panthers in week 18, a win they needed to have a chance to make the playoffs, but with the Falcons beating the Saints, creates a three-way tie at the top of the division, and the Panthers win that three-way tie. That's why the Falcons winning was relevant to their playoff chances. Otherwise, the Buccaneers would have gotten in. And Edge, Jason Pierre-Paul came out of retirement to play in their last 3 games, but only had 38 total snaps, and unfortunately his return was not enough to propel this team to the postseason. There were some rumblings about Todd Bowles, and I wonder if maybe they were team number 7 to give a call to John Harbaugh. But
Mm.
I personally think Bowles has done well enough with this team over the years, keeping them consistently in the playoff conversation, that it'd feel a little unfair to can him after one disappointing year, but maybe without the offensive coordinators that have been hired away, first Dave Canales and now Liam Cohen, maybe he's running out of special sauce.
Yeah. With Jason Pierre-Paul's 38 snaps, how many tackles did he record?
2.
Zero. Not a
Oh,
stat.
it's a real
Not a
Jets interception situation.
right, exactly. Um, it's a real subscribers gained on this podcast after this episode
Oh,
situation.
wow. We got to project confidence. We got to.
Confidence. I'm confident. Um,
I'm confident we'll
no,
get 0 subscribers after this
I'm
episode.
I'm sure the Bucks were confident after starting the season 3-0, 4-0, something like that. And then of course their entire receiving core died, but they, I think, had enough talent to win. I mean, losing to the Panthers in week 16, you win that game, you're in the playoffs. Losing to the Dolphins in week 17, you win that game, you're in the playoffs. Those are two teams, obviously Panthers division rivals, who they beat in week 18, and a game that mattered a lot. But the Dolphins in week 17 with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, it's tough. Tough luck. Tough luck to not be in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, definitely a letdown of a season for them, and I think evaluating, um, yeah, I mean they definitely. I expect or would hope there would be some manner of change. Maybe it's a little further down in the offensive coaching staff to bring in fresh voices, or maybe it's a change at OC, something like that. But after a long run of offensive success with Baker, I don't necessarily want to put all the blame on him just yet. Um, this next team, man, is a bummer. This next team is a bummer.
Bummer. Bummer. Um, yeah.
I'll take the intro because I have a word for it.
Excellent.
Uh, the number 16 Colts, 8 and 9. Uh, and their pick is not their own. They traded for Sauce Gardner, not one but 2 first-round picks, which means the Jets also will have the number 16 pick this year. They were shellacked by the 49ers
Good
in week
word.
16. Thank you. For losing to the Jags and Texans, two division opponents, in weeks 17 and 18 as their playoff odds slipped to going, and then gone. Philip Rivers playing admirably, just not able to give enough ultimately as a team to keep themselves relevant after an incredibly hot start and the most surprising start probably of any team this season.
Yeah. Do you know what their record was after 10 games into the season?
I believe it was 8-2.
It was 8-2. They lost seven in a row.
Phew,
Um,
tough.
yeah, if you would have told me this 8-2 team in week 10 was going to miss the playoffs, I'd have been like, how do they do that? Well, this is how. Um, DeForest Buckner, defensive tackle, re-aggravated his neck injury after coming back just 1 week because he was on IR with the neck injury, came back, re-aggravated it, went on IR again because he needed surgery. The Colts actually made an announcement about retaining both head coach Shane Steichen and GM Chris Ballard. They basically released a statement like, "Yes, we know obviously the end of the season is disappointing, but we still believe in these guys and we want to give them a chance to do whatever they're going to do." Blah blah blah. But I think people were like, "Man, 7 games in a row to lose a season where you clearly had a playoff berth in the bag, that's tough." But they're still there.
I actually really like. I think Steichen's done a lot with a little in terms of the quarterback position, and I really do think that if they are able to stabilize a quarterback position that once again destabilized because of Daniel Jones' injury midway through the season, that would make them much more viable in my mind. I've earned a lot of respect. I've given a lot of respect to Steichen, the way this season's gone, but I think the Daniel Jones injury suddenly puts a question mark at quarterback. They don't have a first round pick the next 2 years to trade up or trade for somebody that could be considered of a higher caliber. And that personally makes me maybe the most pessimistic about the Colts in terms of having no obvious path to a high quality signal caller. I imagine they bring in someone on a Geno Smith um, tier, Marcus Mariota tier,
The return,
maybe a
Jacoby
Mac
Brissett.
Jones. I was thinking, yeah, Brissett. Could this be a Kai landing spot if they don't have to trade for him and they can get him at a more reasonable number type of thing?
Hmm.
But they're just resource poor in means of getting a quarterback, and it's really challenging for a team that feels one quarterback away year after year after year.
Yeah, and I mean the rest is set in place. Jonathan Taylor had an outstanding season. The receiving core, I don't think, people like Michael Pittman, Josh Jacobs, I like Pierce, etc. But they don't have like that Justin Jefferson kind of player. Um, but they're serviceable, of course. And then the defense, I think, looking really good are looking really good early in the season when they traded for Sauce Gardner. He was injured for a lot of it. Him and Travarius Ward didn't really play a lot together because Travarius Ward was also injured. So, assuming health, the pieces there are in place. They just need them all to play.
Yeah, um, yeah, tough situation there for Colts fans who were excited to have a good season. So, um, hopefully next year they are able to, at the very least, get themselves in the dance and give their fans a season to remember after such a heartbreaking finish um, to a promising 2025. Speaking of heartbreaking finishes to promising 2025s, our
Ugh,
beloved Detroit Lions slide in the number 17 spot here, 9-8, after a disappointing loss to the Steelers and disgusting loss to the Vikings that I had to watch with my
horrible.
girlfriend's family.
Horrible, horrible,
Um,
horrible.
hard, hard day to be proud of. Hard day to feel that Lions love, pride, whatever. But at the very least, Week 18, we end strong, beating the Bears, who I wasn't able to watch most of this game, but by all accounts, we're giving a genuine effort to the win there. So nice to sort of take a bite out of the top team there. And safety Kirby Joseph was placed on season-ending IR, like many other of our defensive backs, really challenging year health-wise. And John Morton, who loves the Lions and maybe wanted to stay with the team with some capacity, our offensive coordinator, he has been terminated and he has parted ways with the team. So a major opening for the Lions. No word on Kelvin Shepherd, but expected probably to remain because um, his departure hasn't already been announced, right? So ideally, I would like to have him back for another season. So yeah, another offseason of turnover for a team that fell down to earth in a major way after one of the best regular seasons in the team's memory. So
Yeah, very tough. I think Kelvin
I
Shepherd
will
kind of
also
fits.
add to this.
There is a fair amount of lag, so I don't think you realized I
I
was
agree. Go ahead.
speaking and then you started talking because we're on kind of a bit of a delay here. But I was just gonna say, yeah, he does a lot with a little in terms of who did you just mention? Shane Steichen as the head coach for the Colts. Because all the defensive injuries that we had, I think the defense still did what they could given the talent that was available throughout the season.
Yeah, a really nice performance. And speaking of surprisingly nice performances, I think I use speaking of more than any term I've ever used on this podcast. I'm going to let you take us through the Vikings while I exit and return to reset our lag situation here.
Probably smart. I will do that then. So the Vikings finished last team outside of the playoffs. They are 9-8 as well, tied with the Lions. They beat the Giants. They beat the Lions in week 17, just mentioned that. They also beat the Packers in week 18. So they ended on a win streak here. Despite not having offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw, he was placed on season-ending injury reserve and missed the remainder of the season. Also, J.J. McCarthy missed a week there with a hairline fracture in his hand. Max Brosmer got the start again. And yeah, a team that started off pretty rocky with the quarterback injury, first with J.J., then with Carson Wentz. Didn't look so promising with Max Brosmer, and ultimately they end up with a winning record in the NFC North. The only team in the, or only division rather, sorry, in the NFL that every team had a winning record. So that is impressive nonetheless. And yeah, I think going forward, this is a division where there are four teams to be scared of on a week-to-week basis. Hello, Jared. Welcome back. Did you hear that?
Pretty. Oh, thank you. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. I caught the last bit. And to your point about the four winning teams, I think it's wild that the 17th overall pick in the draft belongs to the lowest member of a given division. Uh, just goes to show how competitive the NFC North remained, and honestly how impressive the turnaround was for a Vikings team that kind of felt dead in the water with JJ floundering. But I think it is absolutely fair to question whether JJ can be the guy, and I expect the Vikings to bring in competition for JJ as he has not done enough, in my view, to prove himself as the unquestionable starter for this team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's all the 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs. But what about the teams that did?
Yeah. Let's start with the one seeds here. In the AFC, the Broncos with a 14-3 record did enough to maintain the top spot despite a loss to the ever surprising Jaguars, a win against the Chiefs and the Chargers, who were resting their starters. That was more than enough for them to hold on to that one seed there. Had a
A
bit of a
bye
scare
this
in
week.
week 16 with wide receiver Pat Bryant hospitalized due to a concussion. Yes, they're saying bye 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 this week. And yes, their wide receiver Pat Bryant able to recover and play in week 18. So that was great. And defensive coordinator Vance Joseph expected to interview for head coach vacancies. Interesting to see if he'll do that on the bye week and what impact that might have on the team.
That's the idea, is what they said. Is that he's going to expect to do these interviews during this week, which is weird because you think they would maybe want to game plan, but I guess because in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, seeding works by higher team or higher seed, the one seed playing the lowest possible seed. So, for example, if the seven seed advances, then that's who they'll automatically play. So maybe they can't game plan because they don't know who they're going to play.
That could balance things out for sure. Um, I am very curious to see whether, after an unsuccessful head coaching stint, he's able to land somewhere, but certainly has had a great few years under Sean Payton. And I'm sure there are a few teams that are more defensively minded that would love to have him as coach.
Super fair. Let's talk about the NFC and their number one team, the Seattle Seahawks, who will have a bye this week after what could have been, what maybe is my game of the year in Week 16 against the Rams, an overtime victory in which they converted a 2-point conversion to win the game, a Week 17 victory over the Panthers, and a Week 18 battle against division rival 49ers for the number one seed. So that was a really, big 3-week stretch for them, and they are now entering as kind of an interesting favorite because I don't know if anyone would have had this team as the one seed in their preseason projections. I know I had them tied with both the Rams and 49ers record wise, and that kind of panned out. But them being totally atop with the best record in the conference was not on my radar. So shout out to them, and I'm sure they will enjoy this bye week.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of promise as potentially the top team of the conference, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform. I think right now, if I had to pick one team coming out of the NFC, perhaps cliche to pick the one seed, but they have played like the one seed, unlike the team that many maybe expected was going to hold on to that one seed in the NFC. Take us through our first matchup of Wildcard Weekend.
Our first matchup of Wildcard Weekend. Your camera just changed like while you were talking, which was so weird. Um,
Hmm.
The number 5 seed Rams, who I think people expected to be the number one seed, that's the team you're alluding to, they are going to the number 4 seed Carolina Panthers on Saturday afternoon. We wanted the Panthers in. The Panthers are in. We are happy about that. The Rams ended up, of course, having a way better record, but they are the away team because of the nature of seedings in the NFL. I actually didn't put the records for teams because I'm stupid. But the Rams were 12 and 5, and the Panthers were 8 and 9. Every team in the NFC South had a negative record, the opposite of the NFC North. So, the Rams are going to be clear favorites here, despite being the lower seed, but that's just the way the divisions work. Should mention this. Rams, I mentioned that loss to Seattle in week 16 in overtime. They also lost to the Falcons in week 17, which basically took them out of conversation. And they may have already been out of conversation, assuming, I mean, Seattle won down the stretch anyways, but assuming Seattle lost week 18, there could have been some weird stuff there. And then in week 18, oh God, I have to come up with another word. Um, I'll say what the kids say. They absolutely clapped the Cardinals. I don't know if kids still say that. That could be totally inaccurate. Um, the Rams also extended safety Quentin Lake on a 3-year, $42 million deal that includes 25.7 million guaranteed. After their loss to the Seahawks, their special teams coordinator Chase Blackburn was fired as when they had 4 losses, 3 of them were kind of in part due to like special teams mess ups. This one included I believe it was a Rashid Shaheed punt return touchdown that kind of put the Seahawks back in this game. Lastly, what I'll say about the Rams, this was before week 16. This was a while ago, so this news has kind of already died down. But wide receiver Puka Nacua was under fire after he did an anti-Semitic gesture on a stream that he appeared on. So this stream was Aiden Ross. If you're not familiar, he's kind of always a dickhead from what I understand. And then Neon was also on the stream, who was also kind of the same lack of personality, bad person streamer. Again, from clips I see online, I obviously don't know these people in real life. And they encouraged Puka to include a gesture, and I'm obviously not going to do it, um, in his next TD celebration, in which he's kind of rubbing his hands together. And basically, the gesture was quote greedy Jew. That's like what it was called. That's what they made him do. And he released a statement that was like, I didn't realize that's what that was. I was just kind of doing whatever they told me. Um, but it's not the first time in his NFL career he's kind of been under a personality controversy, and he hasn't been in the league too long. But that's kind of blown over now. Anyways, that's the Rams. Do you want to talk about the Panthers and then probably the matchup?
Yeah, I will say, I feel like if you tell me someone's a streamer, it is then an uphill battle to convince me that I would like them and not a downhill battle. So,
Right.
uh, Panthers, we wanted them to make the offs, and they did. beating the Buccaneers in week 16, but sliding in a loss to the Seahawks and Buccaneers in week 17 and 18. Unfortunately, probably takes some of the wind out of the sails for a potential Panthers moment of excitement. But as for the matchup, discerning NFL enjoyers may recall the Rams have already traveled to Carolina this season and they dropped that game. So
Hmm.
this is certainly an interesting moment of potential revenge for the Rams. Can the Panthers strike twice? Um, I certainly feel a little more confident in this matchup for them than I would if they were facing up against the Seahawks again. That game ended up pretty one-sided. I think that the Rams have looked a lot more human. They've looked mortal in this final month of the season, and if the Panthers can get some consistently quality play out of Bryce Young, that's not only good for Bryce
Ah,
Young's future, but could cause an upset.
that's what they're known for. That's what he's known for, consistently, consistent play or whatever you said. I already forgot what you said.
It wasn't worth remembering, but I will say that, it's not like if the Bucks or Falcons were playing, we were going to be preaching the consistencies of those ball clubs. So, uh,
That whole
pretty,
division really, really just managed to be inconsistent all year. It's kind of crazy.
that said, I'm pulling for the Panthers. What a fun win that would
Of
be, and it would
course,
set
of
up a
course.
really engaging divisional round with a totally unexpected team. Kind of like the Commanders. Obviously, I didn't like that game last year, but they were sort of a berserker, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that'll be a fun game to kind of start Wildcard Weekend. Next, number seven seed Packers 9-7-1 at number Bears is crazy. Number two Bears 11-6. This is the Saturday night game. Jared, as you know, really the NFC North guy. That's what I know you as. That's what all our friends call you.
Mhm.
Um, why don't you preview this NFC North playoff matchup that doesn't have the Lions in it for us?
Yeah, Packers on a big backslide these last 3 weeks, losing to the Bears in overtime, in a wild affair, which I wasn't able to watch real time, but apparently there's a recovered onside kick in there. Bears were able to tie the game, sent it to overtime. Madness. They then got flogged by the Ravens and lost to the Vikings. So on the backslide, but with missing quarterbacks, makes a little more sense. Jordan Love was missing, and then Malik Willis, the backup, was also a little bit banged up as well. So that put their quarterback room in dire straits. Love is expected to return for this wild card game, having cleared concussion protocol. And this is the team that picked up Trayvon Diggs off of waivers. So adding some reinforcements to the cornerback room, and getting some reinforcements in the quarterback room to hopefully contest against a Bears team that, despite losing to the Lions in week 18 and the Niners in week 17, most recently beat these Packers in week 16 and still have magic in them. These were not bad losses, they were incredibly close games um, that they just kind of gave up right at the end. The Niners very back and forth, and the Lions, they were able to surge near the end. So, a really interesting matchup between two NFC North teams here. I don't want to keep rambling. If you'd like to introduce another of our ethical ballers of the week.
Before I introduce another ethical baller, I will say that Clayton Tune played in Week 18 for this team, and he was released the day after. And they,
Played for the Packers, right?
yeah, this was the Packers, correct, with their
Yep.
QB issues down the stretch, and then they elevated Desmond Ritter from their practice squad. Um,
Brr.
Epic. That's awesome. So hopefully it's Jordan Love in this playoff matchup, although I suppose I root for the Bears given the Packers have had more success in my lifetime as an NFC North fan. So I root for the team that has had less success with the Ben Johnson, who of course is the former Lions offensive coordinator. Um, anyways, not former, current cornerback Nick McLeod for the Bears was the Week 16 NFLPA MVP after hosting a holiday event for 30 fathers of color and their young children, in which he supplied kind of winter essentials, gift cards, coats, catered meal, and a panel with himself and his father, in which he kind of talked about, the impact of growing up and with like what a father can do for you, et cetera, et cetera. Which is important, I think, for young kids when they see an NFL player basically being like, "Look, guys, this is my dad. He's the reason why I'm here." It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. That's good to know." It's it feels like, and I especially like this because, like, obviously, one personal note. I have no relationship with my father. Two, I've talked about this on this podcast. I really dislike when anything happens good for a player and their first thing is like, thank you, God, basically. It's like, family, friends, and maybe it's not your father, maybe it's whoever. So I like when people kind of, I mean, they need to credit themselves too, but crediting actual people in their life is nice. Um, so this hit home for me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I always appreciate when the NFL elevates members of the league who are people of color and celebrates um moments like these where players take this opportunity to use their platform to uplift others from a similar background. So, yeah, I think this is really awesome, and I'm really glad that this was Week 16 NFLPA MVP award winner here.
Yeah, it
Um,
was
in
our Rooney Rule panel of the week.
where's I am concerned. I the thing that kind of bums me out, obviously it's disappointing to see coaches get fired, right? Sad thing that happens every year. The thing that really makes me feel hollow though is when you see names that no one's really talking about in the coaching cycle, but they're coaches of color and they're getting interviews and somewhere in your heart of hearts that it's probably just to satisfy the Rooney rule. I think it's disappointing. Um, to pivot back to the football, I will say Bears linebacker Tremaine Edmonds has been activated from injured reserve for this game. I personally am made itchy all over by the thought of Ben Johnson leaving the Lions and then immediately having a ton of playoff success. So, um, forgive my lack of empathy, but I'm not necessarily going to be pulling for the Bears in this particular playoff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in this particular game, I will. Once we play the next, whoever their next opponent is, assuming they win this game, it depends. It depends on who it is.
Yeah, when they meet the Panthers in the NFC Championship game, there will be no doubt about where my
Right.
rooting interest lies. Okay? Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think this game, obviously, the fact that they had to miracle their way past the Packers or miracled their way past the Packers last time points to this being a coin flip, and that's kind of my impression going in with Jordan Love
Hmm.
coming back. That helps strengthen the Packers a good deal. Um, but the Bears have managed to pull out a ton of wins this year, and they have that home field advantage, which I think is going to be a big deal in this matchup.
For sure. Next, Sunday. We have the number 6 seed Buffalo Bills with finished with a 12-5 record against the number 3 seed Jacksonville Jaguars finished with a 13-4 record. This is at noon for the Bills. Um, an interesting end to the season. They beat the Browns and then they lost to the Eagles and then they um eviscerated the Jets.
Oh, good pull.
Um, and none of these games really mattered that much at this point because the Patriots had such a divisional lead on them that they were going to be a wild card team regardless. So ending up as the number 6 seed is pretty good for them, I think. And I think a lot of people probably would pick them in this game, despite the Jaguars having such a strong end to the season. They won a lot of games in a row, I think, to get to this point. They beat the Broncos, the number 1 seed Broncos. Um, and it wasn't like a blowout in terms of score, but it wasn't like a super close game. They kind of had it in hand from what I remember. And then they beat the Colts as well in week 17. And then they, another word that I have to think of. Do. I got nothing. Um,
They decapitated the Titans.
Murdered in cold blood, the Tennessee Titans. So, They're coming into this playoffs as 3 seed division winner. It's obviously very big. They did a couple of extensions. Offensive lineman Cole Van Lannon, I don't know. 3 years, $51 million. That's a lot for an offensive lineman. 32.5 of that is guaranteed. Also extended, this was like 3 weeks ago, wide receiver Jacoby Myers, 3 years, $60 million, 40 million guaranteed. Traded for him earlier this season. He's been as sure-handed a receiver as they've wanted for a long time, despite Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, their most recent draft picks. He has been um, the guy that catches the ball and you throw it to him basically every time, and he was going to be a free agent, so they already got him on the books. Yeah, this is interesting. Despite the Jaguars being 13-4, I still am not like, oh, this Jaguars team is scary. I'm kind of just like, okay. And I think I would probably prefer the Bills in this game. I think the Bills are obviously more proven with a lot of their veteran talent, of course, including Josh Allen. The Jags defense has been legit and has been scary, and the offense has performed well enough to kind of get to this point in the season. I just don't know if I buy the playoff run of it. This feels to me such like a team that wins a division, but is so clearly like not the team that's going to make a tremendous playoff run. Like they feel like an easy upset pick, and I don't even know if it's an upset, despite the Bills being an underdog. And I could be wrong, and I have been wrong all season. I haven't believed in this team at all. I think I predicted their record to be 5-12. I think that guy on Instagram still comments to this day to pay him $1,000 that he wagered that they would win the division and 10 plus games, and he was absolutely right. So I can't blame him for being mad at me. But gambling's legal in Texas, so I never made that bet. Um,
Yeah, and I
anyways.
assure you, I don't have the money you're looking for.
That's exactly, I like to engage because I think it's funny because he commented like, "Okay, where's my money?" Because he comments like he basically was commenting every week, like, "Oh, look
Yeah,
at our record now," and he commented like, "Okay, we won the division. Where's it at?" And I said, "Look, I don't have $1,000.
yeah.
Like, sorry, even if I were to give you $1,000, which I probably wouldn't anyways, I certainly don't have it just lying around." Um. And he was like, I would have paid my end if you were right. And I was like, I didn't respond, but in my head I was like, that I don't think that's true. But anyways,
And if he would have, that would have made him an ethical baller, though I don't think us not makes us unethical. Um, I don't remember agreeing to that, by the way. So if you commented that, that would have been, you
mm,
know, that's not my fight. But I'm going to take the opposite stance, and it's not because I necessarily am like a huge Jags guy. In fact, I don't really the cut of Liam Cohen's jib, just not for me. But
no,
I
certainly.
I do think though they're a team that I haven't had eyes on a ton. I can't evaluate them earnestly, but from my understanding, what I've heard on Heed the Call and such, a lot of turnovers, and I think that's a bad recipe for Josh Allen in particular. I think Josh Allen
Hmm.
once or twice will have a blow up game where you get one or two turnovers and then suddenly the snowball starts rolling against the Bills. I'm thinking of when they lost to the Texans earlier this year because it's just great defensive play. And I think the Jaguars probably have a higher offensive ceiling than the Texans, even if they have a slightly lower defensive ceiling. And I could just see a world where the Bills, who, yes, have the pedigree, but just haven't quite played like world beaters this year, come in and without having that sort of dagger in their back pocket, aren't able to put away a Jaguars team that's pesky, steals a few drives away from the Bills, and is maybe able to advance. So I'm gonna put my chips on the Jaguars here. No monetary association with that, of course. But I think they could have a very interesting early run in the playoffs here, though I agree. I don't think they are quite championship ready.
Yeah, is part of this because I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl in the preseason? Maybe, but that's neither
That
here nor there.
what was my Super Bowl pick? God, it was some
I remember it.
some red team in the AFC and some blue team
Yeah,
in the NFC.
yeah, yeah,
Was
yeah.
it Leafs? Was it the Lions Chiefs? That's right. I'm a
Mm.
moron. Awesome. Um,
It's not looking too possible right now that the Lions could beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I must say.
Yeah, I don't
You
know,
were actually
maybe.
predicting the 2026, 2027 Super Bowl, so
Yeah, well, I was looking ahead to a situation where you and I are hired as offensive coordinator following John Morton's
mm,
termination, because Dan appreciates our ethical ball on this podcast, and then we are best friends with the Lions, and then win a Super Bowl. So, uh, anyway, let's move on and let's quickly knock out this next game with candidness to the listener. When I realized this was going to be a playoff matchup, I immediately rolled my eyes. I appreciate that great teams can consistently be great, but there's some teams that just show up in every playoff and they get all the smoke. They get all the credit. They get all the press attention and the love. And I get it, right? If you win enough, you're going to get that attention. Just putting these two teams together drives me a little crazy. The number six 49ers 12-5 at the number three Eagles 11-6 on Sunday afternoon. Damon, am I being a hater or do you stand with me against the tyranny of the Eagles and Niners?
I stand with you. You sent me a text where you said I just rolled my eyes at this, and I was like, I wonder what he could mean. And I thought it could have been this, and then I responded with the other NFC North matchup because I was like, well, it is two teams that aren't the Lions. That would annoy me too, and it did. Um, but I was like, yeah, this makes sense. This is we'll call this the fatigue game, perhaps. It's just like, okay,
Mm,
I'm already,
yeah.
I already don't care about either of these teams
Yeah.
immediately. Um, and between them in the last 10 years, there's one Super Bowl victor. No, there's two Super Bowl victors, and it's the Eagles twice. Um, but they're just in the playoffs enough, and enough, divisional wins, championship games, etc. just kind of leads to this point, I think, where I'm like, blah. And there's certain players I like on each team. Like I root for Saquon, for sure. He seems like a genuine guy from all the stuff I've read and watched with him in it. I root for Brock Purdy. The irrelevant thing is kind of whatever at some point. Like I'm kind of already tired of hearing that, but being such a late selection and being a successful quarterback is cool. But then there's the opposite, right? There's like, okay, Christian McCaffrey, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of Christian McCaffrey. He's in every commercial. I gotta hear about him all the time. Yeah, he went to Stanford. He's a genius too. Congratulations. And then there's probably some Eagles player I can also, besmirch here, but
AJ Brown.
Arthur Juan Brown.
Hey,
You
did you
know,
know that George Kittle has long hair and is a tight end and he's a good tight end and he's kind of a wacky guy?
and he made National Tight End Day. Oh, cool. Yeah, so there's a couple guys on each team that I'm kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then there's a couple guys I'm like, oh, and the definitely takes over in this one.
No doubt. If you had shuffled the deck chairs and it was like Eagles, Panth. I know you couldn't have done it this way, but like I would totally take like if we had to do Rams Eagles, that was a fun early season matchup, and then we do Niners Panthers rematch. Like I just these two teams next to each other. I've actually really respected the way the Niners have kept their team together despite the injuries. They certainly have impressed this season. In a way that is, not just like, oh, a good team is good again. They did it a unique way. Um, especially especially after drawing and quartering the Colts, beating the Bears and losing to the Seahawks in a close but not so close game in week 16, 17, 18 respectively. I just think that okay, the Niners could be fine against a team I care about, and then it's like you get the Eagles who just reek of negativity. By the way, winning in week 16 and 17 against the Commanders and Bills before losing to the Commanders, starting Tanner McKee in week 18. So, both of these teams coming off of a loss for the Niners, they were fighting for the one seed and end up at the six. Eagles battling for the two seed, end up the three. So, uh, either way, I think my pick for this game is to skip this game and hope that the Niners win. I like them a little more.
Yeah, I agree. I hope the Niners win too because I like them a little more. I have a friend who really likes the Niners, so that's kind of what I lean towards, I think. Philly fans, kind of legendarily obnoxious. So,
Yep.
um, there was a time I rooted for them, and that was Nick Foles' Super Bowl against the Patriots. Of course, I
Sure.
was going to root for them because there's not a lot of teams I was rooting Tom Brady's Patriots over, you know. Um, but that was kind of a one-time thing. And yeah, I think there's also the other thing we should mention. There was like a couple years ago where these teams had um, big playoff matchups in like divisional or championship games to go to the Super Bowl. I think
Mhm.
the Eagles were mostly victorious in that rivalry, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So
That
that
was the
that
game,
kind
I
of plays a
believe,
part
where
in here.
Brock got injured, right? In that NFC Championship against the Eagles, and then the Niners just couldn't field a quarterback, and that was the
Yeah,
pretty much end of that one.
yeah.
Um,
So there's a little history, a little recent history.
yeah. That was a fun game to watch. I caught the very end of Bears Niners kind of standing outside in Oakland with kind of a group of people around when they scored that late touchdown. I'm not watching football in California again. I'm 0-3, including the NFC Championship. But Niners, I guess
Fair.
some part of me's moved on. So, speaking of moving on, can we please
Please.
jumping over to the AFC, where there is a little more fun under the sun. The number 7 and number 2 matchup, Chargers 11-6 at Patriots 14-3, just missing out on the number 1 seed to the Broncos. A Sunday night match that I think will have a lot of eyes. This is a fun one. Chargers, yeah, they've been around the last couple years, but the Patriots, reborn under Drake May and Mike Vrabel, going to make for a fun matchup.
Yeah. I just don't. The Chargers are so like shoddy to me in this
Yeah.
playoffs. Justin Herbert still has like the hand thing going on. I don't know what happened to their offense down the stretch. I know he had the injury, like I just mentioned, to his offhand, but man, it feels like they were kind of hot early on, and then like it feels like the mostly won games defensively, which was weird. Um, they sliced and diced the Cowboys in Week 16 before losing to the Texans and Broncos, where they kind of were like, yeah, we're not going to be good enough to be higher than the seventh seed on. Let's just lose. Anyways, and rest guys and hope they're healthy for the playoffs. Linebacker Denzel Perriman suspended for 2 games after a late hit on Cowboys receiver Ryan Flournoy in Week 16. Um, Flournoy was kind of already on the ground after a catch, and Perriman just kind of came in and hit him. He got suspended for 2 games. I believe the reasoning was that this was like the third or fourth infraction that he was fined for of these kind of hits that were
Mm.
clearly late and clearly wrong. Um, so he was suspended for the rest of the regular season. He should be back for this game. Patriots, on the other hand, winning streak coming into this, beating the Ravens in a game that really mattered for the Ravens, and then just dismissing entirely the Jets and Dolphins as franchises, perhaps, as they cruise their way into this
Good
14
one.
and 3 record. Um, and yeah, they extended one of their offensive linemen, Ben Brown, 2 years, 6.6 million. Not a huge extension, obviously, but he was an undrafted free agent back in 2022 and has stuck around on this team. And obviously, that with the draft of Will Campbell this year in the first round has really bolstered their offensive line and I think helped Drake May find the success that he's found this season. A couple bad things coming in here to the playoffs. Wide receiver Matt Collins, season-ending IR. Not a guy that actually gets a ton of run, but he did show up to that one game shirtless when it was snowing, and that was pretty cool. And he has cool hair, so those are things that people care about, I think. Um, Even worse, double unethical baller alert for the Patriots. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs. Stop me if you've heard that before, starting in a negative connotation. Charged with strangulation and assault after an apparent incident with his personal chef, I imagine former personal chef now. And defensive tackle Christian Barmore, I believe second round pick last year at Alabama, charged with domestic assault from an incident with his girlfriend back in August. Um, if this is real, I have problems with this particularly. If it happened in August, why didn't we find out in August? Is my first thing. Tell us right away. Why is it a problem now? I'm not saying that the girlfriend did anything wrong, by the way. I'm just saying, like, I don't like when things like this are kind of swept under the rug for several months. I wish it would have been prevalent quicker to be addressed in the way it should be. And yeah, that's that. You doing some
Yeah,
reading?
sorry, I was trying to get an understanding of. I'm trying to figure out. what happened with the personal chef. I guess like she was owed money that Diggs hadn't paid. Okay. Sorry, I just honestly you couldn't really envision what necessarily the source of tension would be between those two parties. But I guess financial kind of makes. I mean, I don't know. I think this stuff is garbage. I think it's silly to suspend someone 2 games for hitting too hard in the hitting game and then have no meaningful recourse when players are charged with violent crimes. I
But it's
understand
the
innocent until
playoffs
proven guilty,
now.
but it just continues to set a dreadful example. And yeah, crazy how these things come out just in time to not really be suspendable because the league doesn't want to mess with the playoffs. Awesome. Unethical ball of the week, no doubt. Really disappointing stuff. And I will say, I think the winner of this game feels. I just don't believe in the Patriots quite. I think that they feel to me like the Commanders of last year, where I just wonder whether they're going to run out of steam. Um, and if a team like the Bills is hanging around in the AFC, or a team we're about to talk about is hanging around, whether they will eventually be beaten by a foe with a little more playoff experience and veteran savvy.
I can't believe you believe in the Steelers that much.
Um, I would love to say that I do, except I would not love to say that I do, and I do not. So, let's talk about number 5 Texans 12-5 at number 4 Steelers 10-7. This is the Monday night matchup. Nice one to put on an island. I'm looking forward to this bad boy for sure. Texans come in with a winning their last 3 here: Raiders, Chargers, and Colts. While the Steelers, after beating the Lions, lost to the Browns and beat the Ravens. So, uh, I am upset the Steelers made the playoffs, and I think the Texans are the team I want to come out of the AFC.
Yeah, I would say the Texans, you think back to the start of the season, they had that 0-3 start. And the offense looked really, really, really bad and really pitiful. And it still doesn't look great, but the defense looks like the best unit in the NFL, and I think is a Super Bowl winning defense. And to your point, I truly don't like I don't view the Broncos and the Patriots, despite having 14-3 records, as these world-beating teams. I've already expressed my concerns for the Jaguars as a long-term playoff team. Um, and I certainly don't believe in the number 4 seed Steelers. I don't even think they're a playoff caliber team, despite winning over our own Lions. Um, so I would say the Texans here at 5 and the Bills at number 6 are the teams I have like the most faith in, despite both of them being wildcard teams. Whether that's just like the Texans, I think it is. Their defense is so good, and the other quarterbacks like Bo Nix is good. He had a great rookie season, a good second season. Drake May's kind of the opposite. He had a good rookie season, an amazing season this year. But I don't necessarily believe in both of them as much as I would a Josh Allen, just as like a long-term baller, and I know he is turnover prone. Um, but I feel like Josh Allen's kind of tenure as a quarterback for the Bills and the talent he's shown, and then the Texans defense, both of those stand out to me as basically the two best things in the AFC, which is why I think those are like the two teams that I do have some belief in here, despite being underdogs, quote unquote.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Briefly for the Steelers, just want to mention tight end Darnell Washington placed on season-ending IR, and wide receiver DK Metcalf received a 2-week suspension after Week 16 when he smacked a Lions fan. The fan apparently
Ryan
claimed,
Kennedy.
yeah, who seems like a bad hang, to be honest.
Yep.
Apparently said he claimed he was just saying DK's full name, but apparently with a Seahawks game last year, there were some concerns about this same fan. Did it make me deeply irate that DK wasn't ejected from the game where he performed the incident, which was against the Lions? Absolutely. But the refs didn't see it in the moment, and I guess New York can't call down on that kind of thing. I honestly, as more time goes on, you should never hit somebody. I think that's stupid. I think the league should punish that fairly heavily. Like you want that fan athlete kind of, distinction to be honored in those kinds of things, but fan just seems kind of like a bozo, and I don't blame DK nearly as much as I did when it happened.
Bozo alert. Yeah, for reference, DK's name, I believe, is Decalen. And what was said by the fan was supposed to be a slur, I think, which is at least that was the claim. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
um, yeah. So that's why that happened. First time for the Texans that they've ever made the playoffs as a wild card team instead of division champions. Jared, do you know how many times the Texans have made the playoffs prior to this year as champions of the AFC South?
I'm gonna guess 7.
Um, that's a good guess. It's eight.
Oh,
They were founded in 1999, so when I was just 3 years old. They've won the division 8 times, and this is the first time they'll be making the playoffs despite not winning the division. Kind of a
I
niche stat there.
believe their first season was in until 2002.
Well, I just Googled it and I read the first number I saw, so if Google lied to me, it's Google's fault.
I was correct.
Don't trust
I
AI,
was
kids.
No, I'm sure they were founded in 99, and then, they kind of got built out
Hmm,
in 2022. Anyway, um
fair.
good for them. Head coached by Dom Capers, it appears. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, 8 division wins in that span. I guess is above average, and obviously a weaker division, but I will be rooting for the Texans big time. If there's one team
Hmm.
on the AFC, I would like, please let this team advance. It is for sure the Texans, and it's not just because of the Steelers of it all. Oh, not looking forward to them. Sorry, therapist who likes the Steelers. Not a fan. Um, anyway, that's it. Honestly, with relative swiftness, we went over the last 3 weeks for all 32 teams. Thank you for hanging around for that. A shame we missed before the end of the regular season there, but I had a lot of holiday travel going on, and I know Damon went home as well. So we were
Sadly.
busy, but back just in time for the games that truly matter, the elimination tournament here. Many enter, one will leave. Going to be a really exciting few weeks of football leading up to the Super Bowl in February.
And Jared, you asked me at the beginning of the season, so I'll ask you at the beginning of the playoffs, who's going to be the Super Bowl matchup here? Who's going to take home the win?
I'm gonna wish cast a little bit.
Yeah.
I think if I could draw up the Super Bowl, I think it would be Texans Seahawks,
Mm.
and I think I'd give it to the Texans. I think Nico Collins has an insane game and wins Super Bowl MVP, and it's enough to overcome the Seahawks and some of Sam Darnold's inconsistency.
Wow. Yeah, that would be absolutely wild. That would be a great Super Bowl. I would have no problem with that whatsoever. Um, Texans and Seahawks were kind of on the top of my mind as teams that I wanted to throw into that, but for sake of being different and not having the same teams, I will say I'll take Rams. I'll take Rams over the Bills. That's my two wild card teams making the Super Bowl, and somehow
Ooh,
the
that would
Rams
be
won.
quite an interesting matchup.
And then I'm mad because their team is full of
And
bad
if I
people. But
recall, um I guess the Rams, they've got what, the Puka situation there.
they got the
Um
Puka thing.
in terms of
Anytime,
bad people.
we love Matt Stafford for his time as a Lions quarterback, but anytime I have to like watch him speak or do anything, I just feel uncomfortable. I don't know.
Interesting. I've really not gotten that vibe from him, but you know, his wife is a bit
Yeah.
ostentatious at times. And that's not to say that women, wives and girlfriends should not have a role in the landscape of the league.
You
Absolutely
heard it
should,
here
but
first.
um
Jared hates women.
noted woman lover. Anyway, I think yeah, I think that would be interesting too, because if I'm not mistaken, is that a week 1 rematch? Was that the week 1 game, Bills Ravens or Bills Rams, excuse me?
think I
Oh
can
no, I'm
possibly
sorry.
remember
I
that
must
far
be
away.
no, because it was Bills Ravens in week 1. Let me see. Bills Rams. Maybe I'm thinking of 2024. No, I'm just crazy. I ignore me. I'm alone.
December 8th of 2024. Rams were at home against the Bills, and the Rams won 44 to 42.
Well, that's pretty awesome. If we got another game like that, I'm sure that would be exciting watch for all involved. Just like this podcast has hopefully been an exciting listen for all involved.
Excellent. Well done. Yes.
Is it kick time?
Oh, look at that football. Is that a new one?
I've got two floating around. This one's folded poorly, so maybe that's you can tell. Um,
To replicate the wind from the Tyler Loop missed kick.
that's the kick I was taking for sure, no doubt. Here I'm creating conditions.
Little
Uh,
pod ASMR here.
yeah. Um, windy day at the stadium ASMR. Anyway, like, subscribe, engage. It's the playoffs. You're gonna want to be involved in the end of the season. Going to be really exciting games going down. So, thanks for joining us in the new year, and hope we have a great one in 2026.
Yes, sir. Post. Post. I'm ready.
I'm lining up the kick. I've got my laptop in the way. That's my wind here.
Excellent.
Here we go. Kick is up.
And I didn't even see it, but it looked like it went off to the side, which was accurate for Tyler Loop, and unfortunately, just like him in week 18 of the 2025 NFL season, that kick was no good.